All right. We are on the inaugural pre launch podcast of News You Don't Care About, a podcast of news that seems spun, news that's being ignored, and perhaps some news you don't care about. And I'm Josh Chiz, and I'm here with.
Jeremiah Chiz.
Josh Chiz.
Whoa, there's two of you.
Crazy.
So we had this idea, I don't know, months ago now.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
beginning of COVID, I think, is when it kind of came to us somewhere in April or May, and we've been toying and bantering about it. And so finally, we just decided to let's make it happen. And so we it's an interesting night because we got we're 2 months and 2 days after the election, presidential election, the national election,
Yep.
and tonight is the Georgia election.
Yep.
A big deal. So we could probably talk about some of that. We got COVID going on. We've got election fraud issues going on. We've got China going on.
There's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on, and so we'll kind of play it by ear and talk a little bit about it. But we also tonight we had we'll keep an eye. We got a TV over here. We'll keep an eye on the election results as we can. But there was also a the results or the announcement of whether or not they're going to press charges. What was Jacob?
Jacob Blake. Right?
Yeah, and that was where? Was that
Uh,
Wisconsin?
is it Kenosha?
Yeah, and we can talk about that a little bit here. Some media issues. I got some things. Speaking of, I don't know. We can open up on any one of those things. We got the Nashville bombing that took place
Yeah.
Christmas Day.
What are you
We
talking?
got what's that?
What are you talking about? Never happened.
Yeah, seems like it. Some news happening around that. So yeah, a whole bunch of different and interesting things that we have happening here. So, um, anything you guys want to start with?
Jeremiah.
No, I think you can take the lead on this one.
All right, that works. Well, so I think election and election fraud is a huge one right now that's going on. It's an interesting deal, and this is one of those things where, um, obviously, it's in the news quite a bit, depending on. Well, it's in the news quite a bit. Your take on it is going to be dependent upon who you're watching, right? I mean, there are
Right.
different views um, on how people feel about it. As a matter of fact, today I saw that obviously you have Trump spouting off a whole bunch about this, and you have his supporters who are amassing in DC right now, kind of protesting the election.
Right.
And then to contrast that, you have Don Lemon. What was it yesterday? Who basically called them a bunch of radicals and what did he say? Did you see that
I
at
didn't.
all?
I didn't see
Me
that.
neither.
Yeah, if you get a chance, look it up. But he called them a bunch of radical conspiracy theorists or something along those lines.
That's a
So
great way to unite
yeah,
people.
yeah. So it's interesting though because even just the media, the way they phrase things. So I have a article here, and I'm going to try to remember to cite these things. I think it's an AP news story. Senator Ted Cruz leads 11 GOP senators challenging Biden win over Trump. But the wording is an interesting thing, right? So, yeah, Washington AP, a coalition of 11 Republican senators announced Saturday it will challenge the outcome of the presidential election by voting to reject electors from some states when Congress meets next week to certify the electoral college results. That would be enough, right?
Right.
But it says the electoral college results that confirmed President-elect Joe Biden won.
That
Just want to make sure you
Yeah.
understand that. So I thought that was funny the way they worded that.
It almost seems a little bit misleading.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's misleading. I just think it's like, in case you're one of those people who questions it, we want to just remind you that Joe Biden won. So uh, it's just kind of funny the way that plays out.
Remembered what I'm having trouble finding is the total number of registered voters in the United States.
Oh, Googling that, you mean,
Yeah.
in general?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just searching it. There's nothing that immediately pops up.
Yeah. So explain why you were looking that up. Do you remember? I think to see the number of total votes in the election compared to total registered
Yes,
voters.
that's right. That's what, because there was a Facebook post or something going around that was saying that there were more votes than registered voters, and
Right.
then other sources were saying that that was disproven. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll just Google how many registered voters there are in the U.S. and you got it by state, and then U.S. Today, like fact checking things, but not a source that just pulls up the
Yeah.
easy, like in an easily accessible way.
And a lot of things that I found is they use themselves as a source and don't cite their source and them their own source.
Yeah,
Right.
there are quite a bit of CNN articles where the source is the CNN database, and then you click on that, and it brings you to the CNN website,
Yeah.
and doesn't really have a
So
source.
I do remember looking that up, and I found that the number of registered voters increased significantly over the last number of years,
Mm-hmm.
and it did seem as though the amount of votes that took place in the presidential election fell below what would have been registered voters. But to your
Right.
point, it was really challenging to even figure that out,
Yeah.
which seems odd that that wouldn't be a readily accessible number. You
Right.
know, there were a lot of like same day registrations, I think, too.
Right, but we're 2 months past that now.
Right, right. That's true.
And like I would have thought it would have been one of the, you know how you can search a certain statistic and Google just pulls it up
Yep.
for you. I figured it would have been one of those, but
Right.
not quite.
No, and if I remember correctly, um, Google actually made it pretty challenging, and we ended up going to uh, different search engines to
Yeah.
actually get
Yep.
better data. So interesting. That's another one of those things, right? The social media elements that are going on, and what is being called censorship and all that fun stuff. So, um,
Oh,
yeah.
so I actually got censored, fact checked on Instagram with my the statistic that you're, as a child in America, you're 66,667 times more likely to get sold into sex trafficking than you are to die of COVID.
Okay.
And it said that the masks aren't helping, and they fact checked it, but like blanked it out and made you click see post in order to even see that. And they said it was because the mask thing isn't true, and it was fact checked by the Washington Post.
And the funny part about that is your post didn't say that masks work or not to wear masks.
Right.
It just like it had nothing to do with that.
It was more to point out that there's negative effects to the lockdowns and mask wearing that we're not seeing.
Right.
And they censored it. So,
Well, we don't know if they censored it,
well,
right? We don't know
yeah.
if they well, in a sense they did, because they gave a warning and you had to like click below
Mhm.
it.
And I looked at it, and there's significantly less people that saw that one than saw my other Instagram story from the day.
Right. That's
I
right.
and I know it's anecdotal, but
Right.
I do you know what anecdotal is?
Yes.
Okay. I thought you said what?
Oh no.
uh, I I paid attention to, like, during the lead up to the election,
Mm-hmm.
my stories and the interactions they would have, and it was interesting to watch. Now, again, like, is it people who just stopped paying attention to Facebook because they were so annoyed with what was happening on
Right.
Facebook with all
Mhm.
the social media, the political stuff going on, or was it something else? But it seemed like there were very interesting disparities in the interactions on my posts. So it's interesting. Josh, I was looking up to see here because I know I came across something really recently about abortion. That was another one of those things that I think was an interesting stat that seemed to be kind of not talked about. But
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Talking about how it's the leading cause of death globally.
But yeah, it was something on that.
446 million. Is that right? That seems really high.
Let me
I think 46 million, wasn't it?
46 million. Yeah, that seems about right.
Did you look it up? 46 million babies aborted. Um, yeah, I think we're kind of all over the place right now, but
42 million babies were aborted in 2020 worldwide.
2020.
Yep.
And so some of that conversation was around COVID, right? Because the number of deaths that are being put out there worldwide um,
Is that
that as a result of COVID, as
right?
a quote result of COVID, right?
Yeah. So you had 42 million babies aborted in 2020, and then since coronavirus started, we've only had 1.82 million deaths
Okay.
worldwide. So this year, 23 times as many babies were aborted as people that died from COVID.
Yeah. And of course, there are so many people who just kind of dismiss that because of perspectives on abortion.
Right.
But obviously, we fall into the belief that a life is a life, and the baby is a life. The fetus is a baby. The baby is a life, and uh, and so to have that aborted is certainly a terrible thing. So that's my perspective, and it's significant. But the other reality, though, about the stat on COVID is at the time you guys looked that up, we were nearing. It was near the end of the year, and we were nearing the total number of deaths in 2019. Correct.
Hmm.
So obviously not factoring in abortion, but going back to kind of COVID death, the COVID death issue is we we've had all these COVID deaths, but we haven't had an increase in the number of deaths in 2020
Right.
compared to 2019.
And it's a sharp drop in flu deaths and other diseases.
Yeah.
Yeah, which would make sense, I guess, if we're all being careful about
Mhm.
sickness. Obviously, COVID is more contagious than the flu. I mean, that's what it would seem.
Hmm.
But yeah. So yeah, there's a lot happening. There's I guess some other COVID stuff. We can swing back to that. Um, More recently, we have some things going on with the again with the election, the uh, the president's phone call. You guys
Yeah.
Mm.
have you guys been paying attention to that? The Georgia phone call.
Uh, I've heard. I haven't like sat down and listened to the whole thing like a lot of people suggested doing
Hmm.
on both sides. You had uh, people who are right leaning say, "Well, you need to listen to the full phone call to like totally understand what he's saying."
Yeah,
Um, so you know that he's not just saying like boost the numbers. And then you have people on the left saying, "Well, you need to listen to the full phone call to see like his whole like to see the whole thing that he's trying to do."
yeah.
So
I'll say I was suspicious when I first heard about it because I was listening to the radio, and it was a station that and broadcast that tends to be I think they would like to say they're moderate or middle of the road, but
Yeah.
I think they tend to be quite liberal in their presentation of the facts,
Mm-hmm.
and they were quoting a small portion. Now, in fairness, I think there was a small portion of the phone call released,
Yeah.
but it was and then like the whole thing was released an hour later or something along those lines. So
Yeah.
they were probably working with what they had initially, but it was released in this way, like, all right, here, listen to this bombshell, which is Trump saying find me 12,000 votes,
Right.
essentially,
Yeah.
right? Which in the context does sound like, was he asking them to cheat,
Yeah. Like
and so
asking them to boost the
um
numbers.
but I did have my questions about it, and as I kept listening, it was an extended period of time, so I was listening to the same station and the repeated cycle of news. But then later on, you could tell they got more data and more
Right.
of the phone calls, so they started playing a little bit more of it. But it's an interesting thing because Trump, I think he's just, it depends on your perspective, right? If you're conservative, you listen to him with an ear of, "Ah, well, that's not what he means, it's not what he's saying." And if you're liberal or progressive or socialist, you listen to him in a way that you judge everything he's saying as though he is the devil incarnate,
Right.
and he's malicious in everything that he's saying,
Yeah.
so I was skeptical when I heard it. um, I I read most of the transcript. I listened to a bunch of the phone call, and my perspective really is that he was just saying, "Hey, here's the numbers." A lot of the phone call, he's throwing out numbers
Right.
to the Secretary of State of Georgia. What's his name? I have it here, Raffensperger, and he's throwing numbers out, and they're like, well, that's not what we have,
Right.
so they're just dismissing
Yeah.
it. But what he's saying is, I've got all these votes that should be mine, should have gone to me.
Right.
And he's, when you go through the whole hour long phone call, it's like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of votes that he's talking about.
Yeah.
And so what he's saying is, so do your job, find those votes, and get me 12,000 of them, so I win, because all
His,
I need is 12,000.
his like from his tweets and what he said, or like over the phone or when he's talking to people, whatever, he has brought up more like pinpoint data than any other like news source that I've seen. Like they, like a lot of the news sources, when they're disputing it, will bring up like the entire country's numbers or like the entire state. But he's tweeted things where it's like literally like count, he's like, here it is county by county, and this is why it doesn't add up.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, well, he's using, if he,
So there's a lot of perspective on this, right? So why, if that's an issue, um why didn't it go anywhere in court,
right.
right? And if it didn't go anywhere in court, is President Trump, um I've heard a lot of different perspectives on this. Is he a champion for fighting for this now, or is he undermining the integrity, like the thing he's claiming to fight for, the Constitution and
Right.
and our rights to elect and our votes to be counted? Um, is he compromising that now because he's fighting for this so late in the game? Some would say, well, if not now, when, right?
Right.
I would argue that that's the case to be made for the race that just ended, the Georgia Senate race, right? Like, if there's going to be any hope of ensuring that the election integrity is sought after,
Right.
we need to have a balance of power and have the Republicans have some sort of control there, But I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on Trump fighting for this now, and even some of the antics of late with the phone call and with calling all the protesters to come to DC
I
on January 5th, or
right.
January 6th, to
So
protest the.
so you have, there's a lot of things that are factors of this. So one, you have public officials this summer saying that looting is okay.
Right.
Like looting and rioting when things happen. That's not an issue. Um, and another factor of this is no matter which way this election goes, you're going to have half the people in this country really upset and really like what happened. Like, because if the votes stick and Biden wins, you're going to have a lot of conservatives be like, well, I don't trust that. Like,
Right.
I don't trust that one bit. And then if you have an investigation and turns out there was voter fraud and the election goes to Trump, then you're going to have all of like the left being like, well, wait, hold on, that's not how this works. So, and then you're going to have a lot of people really mad.
Right.
Like,
So I guess the question is Trump right to feed that? Is President Trump right to feed that right now? Um, with the idea that it's been stolen from him,
right,
or is he better? Is it the right thing for him to say, you know what? I don't believe that. I believe there was fraud. I believe there were issues. It's evident that there were issues, and so um, I will I will concede as the results are this, uh, but I will fight for um, ensuring that investigations are taking place. So, appointing somebody, basically appointing somebody to investigate right now,
yeah,
so that that's in motion,
right,
and then, however, he can post inauguration, continue to support the senators and congresspersons that want to fight for it, right,
right.
and want to question it. I mean, is there a way he does that is more, I guess, supportive to having a smooth transition of power rather than the approach he's taken now?
Hmm. I didn't really,
Left you silence there.
yeah, I
Yeah.
hadn't really thought about it in that way.
I because I've heard very, like, people who would have said the exact same things about Trump up until November 3rd, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, supportive of him, fighting for him, and then even up until, um, he, they his campaign uh, brought cases to
Right,
court, right?
right,
Like, they're all saying the same thing, and then all of a sudden, when those court cases one by one start being rejected,
right.
all of a sudden there's this disparity, and then you have some who say that, no, he needs to fight now, and
Yeah.
then you have some that are saying no, it really is borderlining treasonous for him to to uh, call for things the
And
way he is.
that's the thing. If there is voter fraud, then he's completely in the right with what he's like with trying to make the election secure and fair and set it up. But if he's wrong, and especially if he knows he's wrong, then
Well,
it's
that's a whole different
that
story.
right.
Yeah.
Then that brings about some other issues.
Well, if he knows there's um, not fraud, then that certainly is terrible. But I think the case has been made that there's definitely issues,
Yeah,
right? It's just how extensive are the issues. But I would say that, um, the when you're talking about principles, like, it shouldn't be based on whether he's right or wrong, and it shouldn't be based on him as a person. Like, I heard somebody saying the other day, kind of making the case to fight for the election investigations because of all he's done for us, because of all he's done as president.
right.
And that's dangerous
Yeah.
speak to me, right?
Yeah,
Like, when you're attaching it to him and saying because of who he is, like,
Mhm.
that gets into risky territory.
right.
It's either the right thing to do or it's not,
Yeah,
not based on the person.
and that's what, and you do see that from both sides a lot.
You do.
Is like, well, no, that's a good thing as long as it's my team that's doing it.
Right.
And like the way I view it is
Like, four
it's
years ago, There was election fraud all over the place that
Right.
Yeah.
needed to be
And
investigated.
now there's no
There's
evidence
a
of it ever.
$2 million investigation that turned up nothing. And
Right, with the with
them-
Russia and
yeah.
all that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Because there is evidence of extensive voter fraud, and then November 4th of this year there was none
Yeah.
ever.
Right. Right.
Like,
Election was perfect.
yeah, every single election up to
They
this
turned
point
they
has been
turned
good.
into President Trump. The election was perfect.
Yeah.
It was the best election ever.
Best and safest, most secure election
That's
Nope.
right.
nation's history.
Yeah. As an example of what you're talking about, and I'm with you. It happens on both sides.
Yeah.
I happen to be pulling out an example of the Democrats, but the what is it, 12 senators and over 100 congressmen are gonna um, um, what's the word I'm looking for? They're going to on tomorrow,
Yeah.
for the election. They're going to oppose it,
Oh,
or
yeah.
I forget the word I'm looking for, but um, um, they there is an article here that says Democrats set the precedent for opposing the Electoral College vote certification. So they actually, and I think in 3 different cases, opposed, including 4 years ago.
Yeah. And Vice President Biden shot it down, right?
Well, that's, yeah. I mean, the vice president hosts that,
Right.
right? So um, it's the same thing that Vice President elect, or no, well, Vice President Pence will oversee right now. So it wouldn't have been Pence that did it 4 years ago, because
It
he
was
wouldn't have.
Biden. Yeah.
Oh, you said Biden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, yeah. So he would have shot it down. Um, and and it happened a number of years ago as well, before our lifetime. But in I think in the 3 different cases that it's happened, it's been Democrats that have done it. But yeah, you have this back and forth, which is of course the political game, which is what's so frustrating
Yeah.
to people on both sides, is the inconsistencies that seem to take place there. So
And another thing to point out is it was an unconstitutional election because only House members can change election laws.
Yeah.
It's laid out in the Constitution, and we had individuals change election laws that weren't Congress people.
yeah, so state legislatures, right,
Right.
should be the ones that change state election law, right? That's what's laid out in the Constitution, I believe.
Yeah.
Says that it should be state legislatures that do that.
Yeah.
So-
Not just Congress people.
Yeah, well, Congress changes national election law.
Right.
They implement law that affects that, but the Constitution directly states that it's the state leges, the state assembly, is it? I think specifically that have to deal with state election law.
Right.
And then because of the pandemic, of course, um, election commissioners and such were making, governors were making changes. It gets into the question of what should or shouldn't be allowed in a state of emergency.
Right.
It's a weird tension, because you have, like, in one sense, you had Nancy Pelosi not getting things done because in the beginning of the pandemic, you remember, because
Yeah.
they weren't coming together.
Yeah.
And so then the question was, well, can't they do some things by electronic voting, right?
Right.
Like, or what we're doing now. So, well, it's laid out that they need to do it in person. So can they just change it because of a crisis like this?
Right.
And I don't know what the answer is. I would say that, um, just like just like everybody has done, including state governments, and begun to do things remotely. I don't know why that couldn't have been done, at the state level, with the legislatures, to say, let's come together, and if this is what we need to do, let's vote on it,
Yeah.
and make it happen.
Right. But I would, and if it was if it was the state legislators that did that, like I'd be totally comfortable with that.
Right.
Like, but when it gets down to individuals who are and individuals are much more easily politically influenced than an entire state legislature, and then you have like Democrats literally saying they want to utilize the pandemic in order to hurt Trump. Like AOC,
Hmm.
she tweeted and then people got screenshots of it, but she deleted it soon after, where she said something along the lines of like, we need to stay in lockdown, stop the economy from recovering. Otherwise, it'll help Trump too much and he'll win in November.
She outright said
She
that.
like not word for word, but that
Yeah.
was like the gist of her tweet, and then she deleted it.
Yeah.
I'm sure I could find it somewhere, but like, and so you have little things like that where I'm like, okay, if they're feeling bold enough to tweet that
Right.
to the world, then
Yeah.
what are they willing to do that the world can't see?
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Well, and again, that gets to the frustration of politics in general.
Yeah.
That you know, I I think that gets into a lot of the frustration and the distrust with COVID in general too. So
Mhm.
so you have election integrity questions, and you have uh, COVID, um, where you really have people who don't trust what's being put out there
Yeah.
because it's all been politicized,
Yeah.
right? Which we live in such a hostile culture politically right now, hostile environment where, in my lifetime, I don't know if you guys remember it all, but in my lifetime, I remember when there'd be strong debate, but you'd see, strong Democrats and strong Republicans getting along,
Right. And when I was in third grade in the 2008 election, they had us go into the hallway and we did a school-wide election where we each voted. Um, and I I don't think you could do that now. Like I don't think people would be okay with that.
my theory on that is because they still do. They still they had our kids vote.
Oh yeah.
For those who don't know, I'm dad, and you're my sons, and you have four younger brothers, right? So
I didn't know.
you didn't know?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I'm glad I could tell you. Um, so the I forget. I want to say it was your youngest brother was talking about voting at school,
Mm.
and of course, my cynical mind went to all those teachers just want to know who parents are voting for.
Yeah.
Because that kids for the most part are at that age are voting for who their parents are voting for. So
Also, how'd you remember that? Like third grade? Like I don't even know what I had for lunch today.
Because grandma yelled at me for voting for Obama.
that sounds like your grandmother. Yeah. And this is off topic, but that gets to what what
I'll say it after.
all right. So it gets to kind of the perspective. Obviously, our feelings are going to come through on this if they haven't already. But I tend to be much more conservative politically. I certainly um, break the mold in some areas. But I remember raising you guys. Your mother and I were very careful um, try not to be overt about that,
Yeah.
right?
Mom still doesn't tell me who she voted for.
It's true. It's true. And so, um, I remember specific conversations where you guys would ask, and we wouldn't tell you what we were registered as. And I remember some conversations where you'd come home maybe from church or school or some event,
Right.
kind of spouting off about what somebody else had said to you, and we would kind of come back at you with a devil's advocate perspective,
Right.
um, and so there was always that. I'll tie that in with faith, right? So one of the things that I've had a lot of people say to me, I don't raise my kids to believe in anything specific. I want them to figure it out on their own. And my typical answer to that not, I don't like spout it off to them, but
Right.
my thought immediately is, because I've seen it over and over, well, then you're going to raise them to believe nothing, because um, that's something you tend to have to instill into somebody. Obviously, somebody can come to faith,
Right.
later on in their age. I believe in that, but um, they what I tend to see is, someone who's a nominal churchgoer that never brings their, rarely if ever brings their kid to church,
Right.
yet are surprised when they have no faith in God when
Right.
they're 20
Yeah.
something, right? So tying that back into politics, I always had that concern, like, is our approach like, are you gonna grow up thinking completely differently than we are?
Right.
But I think you're like more extreme than we are on the other end. So
Well,
um,
Josh is for sure.
that's for sure. That's for sure. But anyway, I do think I'm pleased that we can have at least rational conversation. That is one thing that's
So
really lost.
so something which I like just learning it throughout school, I always kind of like noticed but never really picked up on, if that makes sense. So really up until the American Revolution, your common person did not talk about politics.
Hmm.
Like it wasn't common. It was for the elites to do. They would take care of it. Whatever. The common person would suffer, succeed due to it, and most often would suffer for it.
Right.
Um, and that's just how it was.
Suffer the results of what,
Right.
yeah.
So let me just look up when it came out. That's not what I'm doing. Shut up.
Josh typing too. He wants you to know.
So Common Sense by
Thomas Paine.
Thomas Paine. Have you heard of that at all?
No.
So it came out in
1774.
yeah,
I guess.
17 1775 to 1776.
There was something significant that happened in that time frame, as I
Yeah,
recall.
it was so there was this little event in what used to be known as the American colonies
Uh-huh.
called the American Revolution.
Okay.
And legitimately, Common Sense by Thomas Paine was one of the biggest factors of that actually happening.
Okay.
Because what it really did.
Then I probably learned about it sometime.
Right.
It probably came out right as you graduated.
Right. That's not what I was trying to say, Josh.
So Common Sense is a 47-page pamphlet written by Thomas Paine in 1775 to 1776, advocating independence from Great Britain to people in the 13 colonies. Writing in clear and persuasive prose, Paine marshaled moral and political arguments to encourage common people in the colonies to fight for egalitarian government. So before this, politics, like everything written about it, it was written in such like complicated wording that the common person could not understand it. So after Common Sense came out, for the first time ever, you had people like in taverns and like just talking to each other about politics and having civil debates because they were finally able to properly understand what was going on and the impact of what was going on. And you had loyalists that were for Britain, and then you had um, like people that were a part of the revolution, and they were before the war they were still able to discuss. They were still able to trade ideas and bounce things off one another. And it seems to me that we're again at a point where you can't really do that. Like unless like the only time I've talked politics in public is at school.
Yeah.
And because
you did talk politics in public at school?
Yeah.
Like college, you mean?
No, not at college. I haven't.
At high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even in there, it was a controlled environment with a teacher usually leaning one way or another, but nonetheless trying to moderate fairly.
Yeah.
But
and you felt safe that they were doing that?
Yeah, most of the time. And if I didn't feel like they were doing that, I started debating the teacher.
Right.
But like when you can't like you almost can't have a civil discussion
right
about politics like outside of a structured like area because like people just assume things, and like at work, for example, a little while ago, like there was someone who I'm very good friends with, who I have not shared my political views with at all.
Yeah.
And this person started talking about conservatives like they were a bunch of racist, homophobic people. And I was like, oh, well, I don't really agree. I don't think your political views really affect your views like that.
Right.
I think if you like, and there's, I know racist people on both sides of the
Right.
political
Right. Of
spectrum.
course.
Like it's not, and I
Yeah.
know homophobic people on both sides
Yeah.
of the political spectrum. So
Yeah.
it's not singled out to one area. But like even just me saying, well, I don't think that your political views automatically make you racist or homophobic, got this person like annoyed.
Yeah.
They were like, well, no, that because like if you support these things or this person, you're automatically this.
Right.
And I'm like, no, that's not. That's so. My point is like, it's a lot harder to just have a discussion and bounce ideas off one another.
That was apparent in two major areas this year.
Oh,
One is,
gap's really tightened.
is it?
Yeah,
Oh
49.4
wow.
to 50.6 and 49.0 to 51.0. And it was about 17 points when we first started this.
Yeah,
Now down to 1 to 2.
with 59% of the votes in.
Yeah. Interesting. With Democrats leading both. And, but I think they were, I don't know how the breakdown is of the reporting, but I think they were more for Democrats on the early voting, presumed that there
Yeah.
would be more. And then today there should have been a huge surge in Republicans. So
Yeah.
it'll be,
Sound familiar?
yeah, we'll see. We'll see when they stop counting in the middle of the night to make adjustments.
I think that actually stops in like 2 months. But
Yeah, is that okay? But I think there were two huge things that were reflective of what you're talking about this year. One is what they refer to as the shy Trump voter,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is why the polling was so skewed in 16 and even more so in 20, right?
Yeah.
With not knowing who people vote for because Trump voters don't want to be shamed
Yeah.
by
Right.
people who disagree, right? Or lumped into, they might like Trump for some of his policies, but don't want to be lumped into how people view him as a person or
Right.
whatever, right? So there's that element.
Or
The other side is go ahead.
I was just gonna the like a very common reason people support him is like his economic policies. They might not support him with anything else,
Yeah.
but they're still with him for the that was all.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean that's a whole discussion in and of itself. We can have a probably an hour long discussion on Trump and how he approaches things and how people perceive him. But going back to what you were saying, the other element is the protests and the way the protests
Yeah.
are, right? So an example of that is this idea that we need to burn our cities down to convey a message, right? We can't just have conversation. And I get it, like there's a whole bunch to that.
Yeah.
And again, I don't mean to oversimplify that. But then, at the same time, you know, I guess a picture of it like real time is that the DC mayor, you know, allowed the protests to take place in her city all through the summer.
Right.
The mostly peaceful protests.
Right.
And that was her choice to allow it to be the way she did. But she criticized Trump for bringing in National Guard and
Yeah.
having people around the White House and everything. She refused to bring in the National Guard for her city.
Right.
Yet these protesters coming in today and tomorrow, and she's already calling for the National Guard, from what
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a picture to me of that weird inability for us to really even see that different perspectives are okay.
Yeah.
Right. There was a period where, all right, we agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Right. and we're just going to have different perspectives, but I can respect the fact that you have a different perspective.
Right.
But that's gone. It
But
seems to be
and
gone.
I think a big factor of that is you have, which I could go on and on about this, but you have the left going more left, like as a whole.
Hmm.
And so you have, and whenever you have a group going more extreme, what they're doing and what their reactions to opposers will be more extreme. That's just,
Right.
that's how it is.
Which is why they say Obama created Trump,
Right,
right?
right. And then on the other side of things, you have conservatives being like, whoa, they're getting more extreme. I need to dig in like this, like I need to stop this now. I
Yeah.
need to do what I got to do. And so you have the left being more extreme and the right not going more right, but rather being more firm in what they're wanting and saying. And so you have both sides with a gap ever widening in the middle,
Yeah.
that don't want to work with each other, because you got the left saying that conservatives are racist and homophobic and don't want to help people, and then you have the right being like, well, you guys are trying to bring in like socialism, like, and that doesn't work
Right.
like that, and it only brings corruption. And so that's it's another factor that I think.
That's why you have people like Dave Rubin who are classical liberals that are like uh, not moving, but they're becoming more and more right still.
Yeah,
It's
and
because they're
it's because you
balancing.
have, like, as the left moves more extreme, you have a much narrower, like I've always thought of it as like a list with boxes to check off. So like let's say 20 years ago you had 20 boxes in the like conservative column and 20 boxes in the liberal column, and then as time has gone on, the left has reduced like the number of boxes on their side. So if you're going to be a liberal, you have to believe in this, believe in, like, you have to support Black Lives Matter, be pro-choice, be anti-gun, be pro-LGBT. You have to fit in all these boxes, while the right isn't doing that. And so you have people who were like lifelong Democrats, lifelong liberals, who have always voted Democrat, always voted liberal, now being like, well, they're changing and I haven't. Like they're like, my views haven't changed. I'm
Right.
still the way I was 20 years ago. I still support the same general policies, but the left is pushing their own people out.
Mm.
And
But I feel like that wasn't well represented because of how bad Trump is portrayed in the media.
well,
Like he's like
that's because a lot of people don't like Trump.
right.
So you have a lot of
Because there is the Trump factor on the conservative side too, right? The
right.
real people that said I've been conservative. We have neighbors that are like that, right? I've been conservative or at least Republican my whole life. My whole
Right.
family is Republican.
Right.
I'm now a Democrat because
Because of Trump.
right.
Yeah.
And he's the single factor there.
And so like if if the I feel like if let's say in 2016, if another candidate who wasn't Trump was presented, like, and they won, let's like I don't know if I don't think you would have that, you know.
Right. Right.
50.1
The
to 49.
question
50,
is
50.
would they have won at all, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
issue. And I think it's doubtful, knowing how things were, seemingly stacked against Trump, yet he pushed back the way he did,
Yeah.
that nobody else would, right?
Right.
I mean, you guys know where I'm
Because
at with that, but
his first act, one of his first military acts, is sending a Tomahawk missile.
that's right.
Like, yeah, that's what I
50
said.
50.
50. Yeah.
And then 50.3 and 49.7.
Yeah. So Ossoff and Purdue 50-50 with 63% in, and Warnock with 50.3 and Loeffler with 49.7.
It's been like the
Yeah.
Democrats have been decreasing and Republicans have been increasing so
Yeah.
far.
And we're 2/3.
So this is significant because obviously, we have, a balance of power. We've got, you know,
checks and balances.
yeah, with the branches of government, but in a sense too, the two party system, as frustrating as that system is for a lot of people, it does create some balance as far as the way government operates, right?
Mhm.
Um, I mean, my preference is to always have that split somehow,
Yeah.
right? I mean, as much as I might like certain, um, as much as I might think I like, if one side were to have the whole thing, it's dangerous,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right?
it can lead to tyranny very easily.
Yeah, yeah. So I personally think that it'd be beneficial for Republicans to take both seats
Yeah.
Yeah.
and hold on to the Senate and create some.
And a, a concern for me is the majority of Democratic leaders openly supporting socialist policies while the government currently has emergency powers.
Right.
And then if you get, like, no matter, like, if it was, even if it was Trump in the presidency, Republicans control the Senate and Republicans control the House,
Yeah.
I still wouldn't be comfortable
Right.
because right-leaning extremism is fascism and then left-leaning extremism is communism.
Right.
The and so having a Democratic president who whose vice president is the most left-leaning person, like,
We've ever
American
had
yeah,
in
we've
politics,
ever
right?
had.
office. Yeah.
And then a Democrat-led Senate, and then a Democrat-led House, all of which are more extreme than in history,
Yeah.
while openly supporting socialism. I'm a little worried.
And at that point, you can just change the Supreme Court to pretty much whatever. So
Yeah.
you can control all three branches, and
When you
it's like totalitarianism.
like having the
You
Joe
mean
and
by appointing more justices,
right, and
Which is-
which used to be the term stacking the court,
Yeah.
right? But Webster's changed the definition to accommodate the
yep,
Democratic perspective, which is
Webster is very woke.
and all of a sudden Trump is stacking the court by appointing people, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like
But
we're
he's-
gonna accuse Trump of packing the court by legally appointing a judge, and then the second we can, we're gonna actually pack the
We're
court.
gonna
Right.
find a loophole.
Packing,
and-
yes, I'm saying stacking. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but you're right, packing. Uh, um, so on that note, well, oh wait, oh,
Yeah, it's
Ossoff's back up a little bit. It's gonna go back and forth the whole night.
it was a minute ago too.
Yeah, and they're saying it's gonna be tomorrow before we or later before we actually know the results anyway.
Yeah.
Um, Josh, are you prepared for your?
Yes.
We Josh came up with the best segment for this. I don't know if we'll do it every week, but he came up with a good segment, which we should probably like get a little like musical
Yeah.
intro to it, you know. But you want to
Yeah.
introduce the title of it?
So it's Babylon V versus Fox News, and you try to guess if it's a Fox News article or a Babylon V article, which is a satire social media account.
Yeah. So they
Yeah.
do satire. Interestingly, they've been called out and fact checked and
Yeah.
and censored
Mhm.
by the likes of what CNN and
Yep.
Yeah.
Twitter, right?
Washington
Babylon
Post.
B has to consistently put out there to CNN that they're satire.
Just a
So-
reminder, we're satire.
Like
Yeah.
I saw one, like it was just like some ridiculous thing, and it was like, this is satire, and then it was like
Yeah.
just completely obviously satire.
Right.
So the segment basically is us having to guess whether or not it's a Babylon Bee story or you're saying Fox News, but a real story.
Right.
Okay. Are they all actually Fox News or Babylon Bee?
Yes.
These ones are?
Yep. And
Okay.
then as we go on, I could probably change.
Because Babylon B is a more right-leaning,
Yeah. Yeah. They
and
tend to be more
biblical,
conservative, right?
religious. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Fox News does tend to hype a few things up, but
Here and there.
yeah.
I've got my own they're not to the extreme of Babylon Bee, but I have a couple of interesting media stories where they you know, it's not just Fox News. I mean, they all have
Right,
their own
yeah.
thing. There's a Twitter, or I mean a Instagram account like that too, I think that we're following. that
It compares like conservative news sources and their titles and
yeah,
headlines
headlines.
headlines for, and then takes liberal headlines for the same story
Yes.
and will compare them, and some of like sometimes you'll be reading it and it'll either seem like a completely different story depending on like what who wrote the headline, or it'll like
Yeah.
just be written in a completely different light.
That's so going back to the news story that came out today. Don't worry, we'll get to your
Okay.
segment. I'm not skipping it. The headlines on my iPad came up from, because I have a whole bunch of news sources.
Yeah.
So, um, well, I'll give you, this will be the lead into
All right.
your Babylon Bee thing. All right. So, BBC News, AP News, Fox News, and Reuters. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two and two very similar, and then two similar to each other, two others similar to each other. But so I'll give you either one. But um, the story that came out tonight: no police officer will face charges over the shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, an incident which sparked protests in August. Okay,
Okay.
pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Versus
I think I saw this earlier.
prosecutors clear white police
Mm-hmm.
officers of all charges in August shooting of Jacob Blake, a black man in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
I saw one that was like, and was shot 8 times in the back and is now in a coma or something
Yeah.
like that.
Prosecutors declined to charge white police officer who shot Jacob Blake, a black man, in the back. The shooting in Kenosha, Wisconsin sparked protests. And then the last one: no criminal charges will be filed against any officers in the shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, DA's office announces.
It's weird. You're going to get that into detail about what happened, but you're not going to point out that he was reaching for a knife.
Right. And in fairness, right, the ones that are stating the color of the skin of the individuals involved, like that's why it's a story right
Yeah.
now.
Right.
But at the same time, it's really interesting to see the disparity in the way the headlines
Yeah,
are
for sure.
written up. But anyway,
All
so
right. So I believe I've asked you this one, but it is very ridiculous. that
but
I
I have no memory,
That's a good point.
so I might not even remember these.
So we have, this is the only old one, but
Okay.
I remembered it because it was so ridiculous. We have the NBA players travel to the Vatican to discuss social justice with Pope Francis.
Yeah. So is that Babylon Bee or Fox News, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Say it again.
I remember which one.
So NBA players travel to Vatican to discuss social justice work with Pope Francis.
I know this because I mean I do remember talking about it too, but somebody was just commenting about issues with the Vatican and COVID and abortion, and the issue of
Pedophilia.
fetus in
Oh yeah.
vaccines, and all these things are um but oh no, actually no, this was a China thing, because it was about China and how LeBron went. Don't worry, everything's okay, because LeBron went to China to take care of it.
Yep.
So I'm conflating my stories here, but I know that was Fox News.
Yes,
Yeah.
that one was Fox News.
Okay.
All right, so about this one. Chris Christie won't rule out challenging Trump in 2024.
Well, you want to say?
Say it again.
Chris Christie won't rule out challenging Trump in 2024.
No idea.
I say Fox News, and here's why I say it: because um I think that could be legit, like, and it doesn't have the humorous ring to it, to me, that the sarcastic ring
Right,
that
yeah.
Babylon Bee would have.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was Fox News. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Now we have The View erupts when Joy Behar tells Meghan McCain she did not miss her during her maternity leave.
Oh, that's tricky. Oh, So the thing is that like it totally could be Fox News.
Right.
That's the
Like-
point.
Like
Yeah.
And it could
Well, I
be.
just like if you look at like
It's almost like somebody handpicked them.
the age of viewers, like I bet you most women who watch The View also watch Fox News, just age bracket
Well,
wise.
it's age bracket wise, but like the view has gone so far to the left.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna guess Babylon B because of that.
So say it one more time for me.
The view erupts when Joy Behar tells
Behar.
Behar, yeah.
She's very offended if you don't say it right.
I'm gonna say it wrong every time now. Tells Megan McCain she did not miss her during her maternity leave.
You say Babylon B?
I say Babylon B.
I'm going to say Fox News.
That was Fox News.
Yes!
Dang.
All right.
All right, what's next?
Is there one more or no?
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more.
6 more? All right. Let's do one more and then maybe we'll come back to it.
All right. Let's do a popular Christmas song, Mary Did You Know, criticized for mansplaining.
What? Say that again.
Popular Christmas song, Mary Did You Know, criticized for mansplaining.
I love to point out whenever that song is playing that according to the Bible, Mary did in fact know.
She did know. Mary, like it would be fun to see a video of that Mary answering every time. That
Like
came-
a Will Ferrell
Yes.
skit where it's
Yeah.
like asking like
Yeah. So this might be the challenge. Maybe I need to stop following Babylon B, because I do think I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
seeing that one. So maybe I'll stop following Babylon B on
Alright.
Instagram. Uh-oh,
darn it,
you're gone.
can't get it back.
Is it dead?
I think so. Low battery, 20%.
All right.
There we go.
Well, maybe we should see if there are some things we need to wrap up on.
That was Babylon B.
That was Babylon B.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought I remembered Babylon B doing that one.
Oh, Warnock and Loeffler are 50-50 now.
Nice.
67% of the votes in. It's a tight one.
Yeah, and Republican took the lead by
Oh,
0.6. 0.6 of
Purdue.
a point.
Did you
Does a star mean they're in office already? And no star means they're in the opposition?
right, I think that means they're the incumbent.
Gotcha. Yeah, it says she's the incumbent.
Maybe it means who Fox News prefers.
I wonder who.
No, yeah, I believe that's the incumbent.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys hear that someone on our president and vice president elect ticket is accused of plagiarism?
I did.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't.
you didn't hear about
I
this?
did not.
Who did you hear is accused of plagiarism?
It was a while ago, but the president-elect.
President-elect?
Yeah.
Do you remember what he was accused of plagiarism of?
Wasn't it like an entire paper in law school?
Yeah, so that
That's
goes
why,
back
like,
to
the
his
90s.
Syracuse University days,
Right.
I believe,
Yes.
our local university. And I believe he was accused of plagiarism since then as well,
Oh,
but I don't recall for sure. So I'd have to check that. But I came across the story, I think, yesterday that Kamala Harris is accused of plagiarizing Martin Luther King.
Yeah, I
did see
did
that.
see
You
that.
did-
I saw
you
that
did see
earlier.
that?
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Like,
was blown away. I read the article and like it's not just being writing as many papers as I've written, I've always been super concerned about
Yep.
plagiarism.
Yeah.
Right? You guys
Yep.
get that, right? So, and I'm always afraid that like, what if I word something in a way that somebody else does, right? But the whole anecdote is like her being in from what I understand, her being in a stroller, being pushed around by her parents, and somebody asking it was during the protests in the 60s, somebody asking what she wants for Christmas, I think. Or tells about how I'm fussing. And she's like, baby, what do you, oh, no, it's not what do you want for Christmas. What do you want? What do you need during this protest? And I just looked at her and I said, freedom.
That's right.
And apparently, it's a story that MLK shared, I
Yeah.
think, with
She
Playboy magazine or something along
New
those
York
lines.
Post 10 hours ago, Kamala Harris appears to repeatedly plagiarize MLK anecdote.
like
Fox News saying the same thing.
So is
Just-
she saying that she was the baby that Martin Luther King was talking about? Is that her way of saying I met Martin Luther King? Maybe.
I don't know. Let me read the article. When I first read that, that she said freedom,
Uh-huh.
I thought like it was her weird way of like trying to get the Senate to like legalize weed.
Oh.
And because my first thought was, well, she's locked up more African American men on nonviolent weed charges than anyone
and you know
Right.
who
else.
allowed that?
But we're not allowed to talk
I'm
about
not
that.
allowed to talk
Do you know
about
who allowed that though?
Hmm?
Joe Biden's crime bill allowed that.
What?
it.
Crazy. So, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, this is Fox News. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris has repeatedly shared an anecdote about her younger self crying out "freedom," which has led this week to accusations of plagiarism. Quote, so Harris wrote in her 2010 book Smart on Crime, my mother used to laugh when she told the story about the time I was fussing as a toddler. She leaned down to me and asked, Kamala, what's wrong? What do you want? And I wailed back, freedom.
I think the Martin Luther King story, this may exonerate her
Mm-hmm.
because his version is feed 'em.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna guess Babylon B with this one.
Nope. This is a legit story.
I'm trying to find where they point out that it's
Like she could have just referenced it and nobody would have cared.
Right.
Like she had to
I
take it as
know.
her own.
and she's been doing it since 2004.
Wouldn't it be an interesting twist though if it really was her? Like if the story he was talking about
Was
like
her as like
because I think the story is he overheard a mother.
oh
So it makes me wonder, like, did she hear that story and now she's like conflating it with her mother telling a story about her, or is it just a good story that she, believed nobody would realize she's plagiarizing, or did she meet Martin Luther King when she was a baby in a stroller?
yeah.
I don't know. You tell me.
So this is what Dr. Martin Luther King said.
Okay.
He said, I will never forget a moment in Birmingham when a white policeman accosted a little Negro girl, 7 or 8 years old, who was walking in a demonstration with her mother. King said at the time, what do you want? The policeman asked her gruffly, and the little girl looked him straight in the eye and answered, Feedum. She couldn't even pronounce it, but she knew. It was beautiful. Many times when I have been in sorely trying situations, the memory of that little one has come into my mind and has buoyed me.
Yeah.
So wasn't her
Not
mom.
not the same story.
Yeah, nope,
but
not
enough
quite.
similarity that
Yeah. And
that's not good.
I just read where and her story takes place in Oakland, California.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
Well, so we've done a lot of chatting here. I think we need to get to some other news you don't care about.
agreed.
Okay. So I got I think I have one that you guys might be interested in. Do you know we converted this year to like almost all streaming services, right?
Right.
We do have regular TV through a streaming TV service, but we do have the popular Netflix, right? And so we've done a lot of watching of Netflix. I think you guys have watched your fair share of net. Yeah,
Maybe,
couple
maybe.
couple shows, right?
Perhaps.
I didn't even know we had it.
So, so what would you guess of all the popular shows? What would you guess the number one Netflix most streamed show is? Let's see,
The
the
Office.
most streamed show. Oh, yeah, number one show. What do you say? The Office.
I say The Office.
Okay.
Of what year? 2020 or 2019?
Of 2020. Sorry.
Oh,
Of 2020.
okay. Then I take back my answer.
Okay.
Yeah. My
Hmm.
guess would be
Avatar:
Outer-
The Last Airbender.
Outer Banks.
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
Is that a movie? Or
No,
the
it's
TV?
a
They're talking about the
show,
TV
but
series.
it came
The-
on to Netflix like right in the beginning of the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And everybody
Oh.
watched it.
Oh, I know our
Not
kids
everybody.
watched it. My
Yeah.
kids watched it. Yeah.
Tiger King. I forgot about that.
Tiger King.
Oh, is
That's a
that-
big one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah. Donovan, did you hear my question?
No.
Did you want to weigh in on it? What's your thoughts on the number one Netflix streamed show streaming on the platform in 2020?
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Okay. So two avatars and one Tiger King.
Oh.
Okay. You were correct that The Office has spent more days on the coveted chart.
Yeah.
Um,
But they just took that off
yeah.
on New Year's.
Number one is Coco Melon.
Oh, of course.
That was so. I shouldn't have been surprised because it says number one is going to surprise you.
Well, usually it's like something stupid like The Office.
This
but
show?
It's a preschool nursery rhyme show.
It's probably,
So all the preschools in the world probably just run it constantly.
or I wonder. I'd be interested to see trends like that because little kids. I don't know if you know this. Have you had kids, Dad? But
I've had a couple. Yeah.
little kids tend to watch the same show over and over
True.
and over again.
Yes, I have seen that. So I have noticed that.
But I actually have a news you don't care about as well.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
So
I'm gonna try to pull it up here. Did you put it in front of the camera?
No.
Oh.
It's this show. Let's see if I can.
There we go. Coco Melon.
Yep.
Nice. All right, go ahead, Josh.
So we have very important news.
Okay.
Kid Rock commits 6 figures to Barstool Sports Fund for small businesses.
Really?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. So 6 figures to Barstool Sports to
Yeah.
aid current small businesses or to invest into new small business?
I believe aid current small businesses.
Yeah.
but
That's another thing. You have a huge transfer of wealth going on right
Yeah.
now.
It is a huge element. As a matter of fact, I think I have something somewhere, but
Yeah, I don't want to get into it too much for me because I want when I get into that I want to have everything out in front of me so I can be pulling facts. But
just dealing with COVID and the response and
the lockdowns, how they're impacting small businesses, how large businesses are doing better than ever before.
Yeah.
And while their competition is being wiped out.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot of I'll get into that at some other time.
No, it's huge. I think we really should talk about that at some point pretty soon. Another thing, and I had a number of stories pulled up for today, but we should probably wrap it up here. Is law enforcement. You know, as you guys know, that's one of the things that's huge for me. I'm a big supporter. We're all big supporters of law enforcement, and you know the
not repping.
oh, I do see the blue there. Yeah.
Oh, Jeremiah's the
Oh
only
yeah,
one not.
I'm just in my flannel.
What's that?
You have Hop Overwatch on.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, big supporter here, and you know I'm a chaplain for law enforcement, and so it's an interesting tension I've always found myself in this year with, um, the protests and different things, and certainly concerned about any elements of racism and all that. But I certainly am concerned about the way that law enforcement is portrayed in the media. That said, I have a number of law enforcement stories, and even just things like, the spike in unrest and crime because of the pandemic. A lot of interesting stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, bicycle hoodlums. Have you seen that?
No.
Yep. This was yesterday. No, January 1st, first of the year. Bicycle hoodlums are the latest terror for New Yorkers to fear.
Oh.
And it's literally a group of kids, like young kids, caught on video attacking innocent motorists. A gang of young bicycle hoodlums. Absolutely horrific, but all too typical of the kind of chaos and lawlessness that's gripped the city. That
It was
said,
New York City.
that was New York City. Interestingly, and tied to that, today was an article of, oh no, that's the wrong article. That was about vaccines. Um, of the highest moves in and out of metro areas.
Yep.
Yeah.
You saw that today? Or are you just saying, yeah, like
Yeah.
you see where this is going?
Yeah.
Um, all right, so let me list a couple of cities here, and you tell me, and I won't even tell you the reason why. Right? We'll just
I think I might have seen a senator retweet this earlier.
okay. Well, you can still guess. You tell me if this is a most moved into city or most moved out of city. It's going to be tough.
All right.
It's going to be hard. All
Let's
right.
hear it.
All right. We'll start with Austin, Texas.
I'm gonna have to go with moved in.
Me too.
You guys are good at this
Yeah.
so far. 100%. Okay. Now there's percentage. I should have looked it up. I don't know. 65%. I don't know what the percentage is of.
Is that like over average, maybe?
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Um, so, or yeah, it must be that. How about Bremerton, Washington?
Ooh, Washington.
I'm gonna
A
go with
lot of people are moving there, but
No, I'm gonna say with recent crime spikes that have been going on in that general side of the country, I'm gonna have to say moving out.
I'm gonna go
moving
with-
out.
Yeah.
You're both saying moving out.
Moving out.
Man, I tried to throw you a hard one initially. You're right. Moving out. All right.
Doing good.
Can only go down from here.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. Great city. My wife was born there, and I visited there a number of years ago to do a wedding on our anniversary. Absolutely love the city, and great place to visit.
Visit.
Chicago,
Visit.
Chicago, Illinois. What's your thoughts there?
Well, I mean, considering the fact that you're more likely to be shot in Chicago than get coronavirus, I'm gonna have to say moving out.
Can you verify that statistic?
I can at a later date.
Okay. So yeah, number 6 was Chicago. Number 7 was Bremerton, Washington for moving out. Austin, Texas was number 8 for moving in. So let's go with some higher numbers here. Wilmington, North Carolina.
Oh, that is a tricky one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go moving in.
I'm gonna say moving out.
Ding, 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 ding. Josh gets it.
Yeah.
Moving in. Number 1 for moving in, as a matter of fact.
Oh, so
Yeah.
I was like,
I
really
figured it'd be
wrong.
Yeah.
I figured it'd be a city in like Connecticut or somewhere around here that people are fleeing New York City to avoid taxes.
Well, no, they are moving out of New York City. New York is number 4.
It's like what 170.
Nassau, New York, which is right next door,
Yeah.
is number 1.
That's right.
Bergen, New Jersey, Trenton, New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey, and Middlesex, New Jersey all made the top 10. New Jersey wins
For
overall. New
for
York, I think, is second overall. Um, and as a matter of fact, Bridgeport, Connecticut is on the list of moving out.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because the whole region is
Yeah.
rough right now.
I know a lot of, at least from what I've seen, some people want to stay in the region, but I guess
Yeah,
it's
I
not
mean,
really high up here.
like
I
on
always
the-
thought I'd end up in New York City, so maybe now's the time. Like, I'm sure soon real estate's going to be really,
real cheap.
yeah. Well, I don't know about cheap, but
Well, cheaper.
yeah,
we have
and you have
on
Sarasota,
the-
Florida, Boise, Idaho, Huntsville, Alabama, Fort Myers, Florida, um, Nashville, Tennessee.
So you have on the list, you have New York, New Jersey, New Jersey, New York, New Jersey, and then Illinois, Washington, Connecticut, and then New Jersey again.
Right.
And something you're hearing from both the governors of New York and New Jersey is people are moving because of the weather. The
Yes.
weather is what's really
New
pushing-
Jersey saying that too?
I think
During
that-
global warming, they want to move to warmer climates.
I know what doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I know Cuomo said it. I didn't know who else had said it, but it's an interesting thing because, New York City seemed to grow
I
during
know.
the bad weather,
Yeah.
right? Through the last couple hundred years.
Right.
It seemed to become the biggest city in the nation.
Right.
Right.
But now things are warming up.
So now,
Right. Get out of town.
yeah. Interesting. Well, any other odd news or news you don't care about that you want to?
There's some news you should care about.
Ooh, news you should care about.
So we had 304 police officers lost their lives in the line of duty.
Ooh,
And an interesting statistic is that only 23 were female.
only
Just-
23.
Yeah, I just think that's
What is the
Interesting.
total number? Do you know, like an estimate of what the total number of male officers versus female officers is?
Total, like in general?
Yeah, like what the.
Well,
like,
I was going to say actually 23 is significant to me because it traditionally is such a male dominated profession, right? And you were starting to see many more women in law enforcement, which is great. We're seeing, like, through the year, we've seen a number of women chiefs, in
Yeah.
different prominent police departments,
some
which
that had
is,
to step down.
yeah, true. But so 23 is actually a high number to me. It's a terrible number either way. You guys know, like, with the shirt I have on, Op Overwatch. One of the impetus of starting Op Overwatch was law enforcement suicides.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the last couple of years, law enforcement suicide has overtaken felonious, like, homicide of law enforcement, or
Yeah.
or line of duty deaths of law
Yeah,
enforcement. I
that's
should
not
say.
even
and
included in this.
I'm
Yeah.
curious as to how this year.
Um,
affects that,
you know,
if at all.
I think the suicide numbers are down this year. I don't know. I should have that number right off the top of my head. And I don't. I could look that up, but it is. I think Blue Help tends to have that statistic on their homepage if you want to look it up. But I think the line of duty deaths is well over suicides this year. Now, I say that with a grain of salt because one of the things we talk about is that a lot of law enforcement suicides are not reported,
Right.
right? Because I think, like, a lot in the federal government, for instance, does not report suicides out.
Yeah.
So
It's like the same thing with like gun violence overall. Like a lot of times suicides are like lumped in with that. But
Yeah.
but the point of that being suicides aren't made clear
yeah,
a lot of the time.
239 police officer suicides in 2019, 173 last year.
yeah. So it's down significantly
Yeah,
percentage wise
66.
from 2019. That said, I think what you had was a year where they were busy, right? They were the law enforcement world has been kind of engulfed into, obviously, the protests, I think my concern is the upcoming years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we had a mass retirements this year,
Big
and
time.
a lot of law enforcement suicides are retirees. They do include those in the number, and um, and so I think you have a lot of people that retired this year out of anger and frustration and disillusionment because of the way they've been portrayed,
Yeah.
and so and then you have all the other issues of law enforcement lumped in, and I am severely concerned about the upcoming years with law enforcement suicides of retirees and even active duty. Um, but yeah, it gets to some of what I would like to include in this periodically is kind of the portrayal of law enforcement. Like I have a story here that you it's an article that came through one of my um, police news emails, but I never saw it on any of the news, the main media outlets. And it's a law enforcement officer ambushed, shot 6 times by a stranded motorist. So, guy's stranded on the highway, and officers walking up to check on him and didn't pull him over. He just
Right.
came up on him as a
Right.
stranded motorist. And this guy gets out of his vehicle and starts shooting at him. And it's a terrible video. I watched it, and the officer ends up shooting him, and I'm pretty sure he died. The guy who shot the police officer. I think this police officer survived. Um, but these are the things that are lost in the way the media portrays
Right.
law enforcement, right? And it's a tough issue, but and it would have been awesome to do this. I think that's what spurred us on with some of this was to kind of talk about these things, but we'll have plenty of opportunity as things emerge.
Yeah.
Jeremiah, anything you want to hit on before we close off here?
No, I got my little history bit in there with Thomas Paine and Common Sense, so I think I'm all set.
All right. Yeah. Should we mention that you're a history major?
Maybe.
If
Yeah.
you don't, he will.
Hey.
Yeah, I got so many things here that I was ready to talk about. Like the virus today, California struggles to tame COVID-19. And obviously we have the same issue in New York, but it says this. It says after months of serving as a role model in the fight against COVID-19, California has seen infections race out of control for weeks. It's now the worst coronavirus diagnosis rate in the US. And it goes on about that. And I've been saying for weeks, maybe longer, um, Cuomo got the credit for how well New York did recovering from the initial outbreak, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the initial outbreak wasn't his fault. It was probably Trump's fault, but according to Cuomo. But actually, he did say that. He said
Yes.
he did say that. So, but he gets the credit for quelling the virus, right? For bringing the curve down.
Right.
And then when the numbers started to go up in October and November. Who gets the blame?
The citizens.
The people.
Right.
So
Of course.
Cuomo gets the credit in the spring for fixing everything, and the people are messing up. We're screwing up. And
Us darn peasants
I
screwing
know.
up his plans.
Yeah.
And it's what was I gonna say? Oh, it's weird that some of the states with the strictest lockdowns also have a high infection rate, and even like Florida doesn't have lockdowns and still has a high infection rate. So
Yeah.
Like
like
what gives?
right.
That's right. I think we can close with this, and it does relate to coronavirus, and I do think it's an important thing if you're in New York, and maybe a topic we can talk about as we move forward, because it has not passed yet. By the way, both Republicans are up 51% to 49 and 50.7 to 49.3, with 76% in. Still super tight. Still
Yeah,
could go either
It's
way.
pretty close.
Wow.
And it hasn't gotten above 50, 51
Yeah.
either way in a bit since it
Yeah.
was at like 50% in.
That's right. There is a bill going through the New York State Assembly right now that is worth noting, and I'm losing it all of a sudden. Here we go. A416. And yeah, it's in the assembly. It's going, it looks like January 6th, 2021. Okay. And
A lot going on that day.
yeah.
Oh,
So if this, we better get a huge viewership to take care of
oh,
this
that's what it
by
is.
by tomorrow.
I remember.
What's that?
I remember what it was. I was trying to think of what it is. I remember.
Oh, the bill?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all about the implementation of the vaccine. Um, but it says the public health law amended by adding a new section to read as follows: removal and detention of cases, contacts, and carriers who are or may be a danger to public health.
My mom sent this in.
The provisions of this section shall be utilized in the event that the governor declares a state of health emergency, which we're already in, right? Upon determining by clear and convincing evidence that the health of others is or may be endangered by a case, contact, or carrier, or suspected case, contact, or carrier of contagious disease, that in the opinion of the governor, after consultation with the commissioner, may pose an imminent and significant threat to the public health, resulting in severe morbidity or high mortality, the governor or his or her delegates, including but not limited to the commissioner or heads of local health departments, may order the removal or detention of such person or group of such persons by issuing a single order. And it also later on says, oh, this is all about being detained. I think it's the same one that. No, this is all about being detained.
So the first things I notice while you're reading that to me, besides like just what you read as a whole,
Yeah.
like one, you have the governor suddenly having the power to be like, okay, you go bye-bye. Like, and that has never been a good solution
Right.
for the people.
Right.
No matter how you slice and dice it. And then another thing, which you do see quite a bit in more tyrannical environments,
Yep.
is the worst use of the words like may present a danger.
Right.
Because then it's an opinion.
Yeah.
And
well, it already says in the opinion of the governor, right?
Like
and he's in consultation and
with people he puts in charge.
And it is a threat to a large group of people is how it's worded, but I think he's made clear that certain people are not representative of what New York beliefs are and values are, and they may be a threat.
Yeah.
It gets scary. The other what I thought I had pulled up, this is the wrong one, but there's another one that I actually got on the assembly page. God bless you.
Thank you.
And it calls for the ability to mandate the vaccine, the coronavirus vaccine.
Well,
so
I can't get it because I have a bunch of allergies. So
yeah,
Everybody's just proving Alex Jones right.
I know. That's not what you want to do.
Right.
You want to prove him wrong.
Yes. It's not that hard.
like
Oh.
he says chemicals are being put in the water that turns the frogs gay. Like, it's not hard to disprove him. Stop proving him right.
This is the same dude that thought that Sandy Hook was fake to push gun control.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff he's saying is like
Starting
to come true. And
for that, he has come out and apologized for that.
Didn't Joe Rogan interview him?
Yeah,
for like 72 hours or something.
He's interviewed him a lot, and he has him as a guest.
Yeah.
Like when he has a couple of interviewees on.
Yeah.
He's
a smart guy, that's for sure.
When I was in quarantine, because I had the Rona.
Yeah.
So back in October when I had it, I was
alive.
in quarantine. I know, barely survived. But I started watching Joe Rogan a little bit and started watching Alex Jones, and I was like, wow, this guy is both really smart and absolutely crazy.
Some of the stuff he says is like almost true.
Yeah.
It's like, is it?
Right.
Well,
but I can't get the vaccine, so when the rest of y'all I Am Legends are walking around.
Why can't you?
Because if you have a lot of allergies, like I do, they say not to get it.
Weak genes.
Weak genes.
You're my little brother.
uh, yeah. So that'll be interesting though, because the consequence of that, the conversation right now is, are you going to be able to travel freely? Are you going to be able to,
Yeah.
I worked in a hospital for a number of years. People who didn't get a flu shot had to walk around the entire winter with a mask on, and like required.
Dead.
Oh, Josh just died.
Not yet.
You still
10%.
there? 10%? All right. Well, we'll wrap it up on the note
For
of
real this time.
All right. You had one more news you should care about, or that was it?
There was one that said,
Or did you just remember something else that was unrelated to news you should care about?
I don't remember.
All right.
But well, there's this one that I thought was pretty interesting. A police officer who arrested a woman for shoplifting buys all of her groceries for her.
Yes, I saw that. Was that Massachusetts?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
Massachusetts.
Yeah. So he was called for shoplifting, arrested them, or did he arrest them or just address them? I think he just
Maybe he just
maybe he
addressed them.
cited them,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then ended up buying.
because she said she only stole it because she didn't have the money to pay for it.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, like I think if I remember correctly, she was legitimately buying groceries, but tried to sneak a few items that they couldn't afford or something. And there was clearly a kid there that
Yeah.
she was trying to take care of.
Hmm.
So I thought that was a pretty neat story. Awesome. Well, I have no idea how this will turn out
Yeah.
audio wise or
we'll see.
otherwise, but it's been a blast. And I do think we'll have a lot of fun with this over time. And our goal is to do a couple of pre-launch episodes and eventually start to go live with this.
Yep.
Eventually we'll have some guests come in.
Eventually, I'll be doing it over Zoom because I'll be at school.
Yeah, away at school, and so Josh and I will dominate the cottage and broadcast from here. But this has been a blast. So appreciate you guys being a part of this. News you don't care about. Have a great night.